Hello everyone, and welcome to my first Trench Crusade video. For this video, we're going to take a look at this art by Mike Francina. Specifically, we're going to look at the colors that he used. The art overall isn't very dark, like some Warhammer art might be, but it has this tone to it, and that's really set by the colors used. The colors used are desaturated, which means they lack intensity. They're all dull and pale, and while it lacks that darkness that some dark art might have, it really helps set the tone through that paleness, showing that everything is really bleak in this setting. That's really the mood we want to go for with Trench Crusade, and to create that mood, we're going to use colors, contrast, and texture. Focusing on colors, we're going to be using those desaturated colors, and I'm going to show you how to desaturate your colors. And it's really quite simple. If you look at a color wheel, all you're going to do is you're going to take the color at the opposite end of your color that you're going to use and add it to the color you're going to use, and that starts to desaturate it. It makes it less vivid. Let's look at some on-palette examples. We're going to grab Skulker Yellow and then Amethyst Rain, and we're going to add those two colors to our palette and then start to mix them together. And I like to drag the colors away from themselves and dip it a little bit and then mix, and you can already see that we're already starting to get a much less vivid yellow out of it. Then we're going to do the same with blue with Eldar Robe, and then Fanatic Orange. And then we're going to repeat the process that we did with the yellow, and we're just going to adjust as we go. You can add a little bit more orange, change the color, add a little bit more blue, make it a little bit more vivid if you want. And as I work with these colors, I decide I don't really like them. The blue is definitely getting a little bit more desaturated, but it doesn't quite work as well as that I want it to. So I grab a different paint, a brighter orange, and start to use that instead. And while you can only briefly see it, I do believe that it ended up working out better. As a final example, we'll use Mephiston Red, as well as Ethereal Green. And I apologize for the focusing here, but mixing them together, we definitely do get a more desaturated red color. And this is going with Mephiston Red, which is a little bit of a darker red. If you want, feel free to explore with other colors. And here's a quick close-up where you can see all the colors mixed and how they look. And I'm going to show you how to obtain that mood we talked about before by painting some desaturated yellow. Now, I know I showed you just how to mix some desaturated colors, but I'm not going to be doing that. I have a pretty extensive paint collection, so I'm going to be using the paints that I have on hand, which include desaturated colors. And I started off with a complete base coat of P3 Thornwood Green. I really love this color. It's really going to set the atmosphere of my model, and I'm going to use it for pretty much all of my Trench Crusade models. And we're applying the first bit of color with a mixture of that P3 Thornwood Green as well as two thin coats Panzer Yellow. And I'm applying it with a big brush, and I'm applying it with a sloppy stippling motion. And what that's going to do is that's going to create texture. We're going to want to have some of that pure P3 Thornwood Green showing through to create some contrast. And you're going to want to do multiple layers of this. And that's not only to get your color more solid, but it also helps create texture as well as blending from your dark contrasted base color to what you are painting up to. And as you can see, we're already getting some of that texture, which will help set the mood along with the colors we're using and the contrast we're going to be making. With that layer dry, you can start to see that I have got that color more solidly on these areas where I'm going to be highlighting. The splotchiness of seeing those darker colors through some of the areas of this coat really give it that darkness, and that's without using some oil paints or Devlin mud to really like grime up the model, which I will talk about a little bit more in the future. But for now, we're going to be moving on to our first highlight, and that is with pure two thin coats Panzer Yellow. And we're going to be applying it the same way we did our previous color, but we're going to be doing it a little bit more delicately, a little bit more refined, not so sloppily. I'm creating additional texture with the use of dot stippling as well as little slash marks, and just work on adding more slowly. You can see that I'm not adding a ton of this color to the model, and it's remaining fairly dark, but I will add more over time, and that's just simple refinement. As you paint, you just want to refine more and more as you go on. That helps you keep control of the painting process and make it look just how you want it to. And now that we're complete with that layer, you can really see that despite the fact that I've used two very dark colors and only two colors, there's a lot of contrast there, and it's looking kind of bright already, but it's not bright yet, and we're not done highlighting, so we're gonna move in with our next color. And that is going to be P3 Moldy Ochre, and we're going to mix that with our Panzer Yellow. By not doing just pure jumps to the next color and mixing it in with our previous color, we allow us to have a stronger blend. As you can see, with just this Moldy Ochre added, it's already a little brighter without being too bright. And now it is still quite bright, so we are adding only a little because we really want that contrast to shine, and that contrast combined with our color choice and the texture we're making is really making it that grim dark. Alright, and that coat is done. You can see that the highlight started to really settle in, and it wasn't as bright as it appeared on the camera. And the camera is really catching these yellow tones quite a lot. And as you can see, when we start to apply pure Moldy Ochre in our next few steps, it's going to be really bright looking, but it doesn't look that intense in person, and I promise that. And as I work, you can see that I'm working even more refined. It's smaller brush strokes, it's smaller dots, it's less paint, and that will just continue as we start to finish up the model. And at this point, I want to talk about color choices. And in the beginning, I showed you how to mix colors, and mixing colors is a great way to stay kind of thrifty, keeps costs down, but it's always, in my opinion, a bit of a risk because you might not mix the same colors the same way, and it could really alter the way your models look over the course of an entire army. That's one of the reasons I choose to buy a lot of colors, and that is expensive, and I have the luxury of having a nice job where I can afford that, so it's not always the best option for everyone, but I do encourage you to explore doing both and finding out what works best for you. Alright, and that is our final highlight complete, and look at how grimy this model looks without any washes, without any oils, or anything like that. I think what those washes and oils do is tend to make things look a bit more dirty rather than bleak and dark like this Trench Crusade setting really looks like. But when I looked at this model, I thought it looked a little bit more green because of that Thornwood green, so I decided to start to add a wash of a more saturated yellow, and it's very, very thin, as you can see by my thumb test. And because it's so thin, it doesn't really make the model look more saturated. It just kind of helps that yellow color get in there. And by applying it over both the base and the highlight, it will help blend things a little bit better. But with that, the cloak is complete, and so is the tutorial portion of this video. And now I'm just going to kind of go over some of the other Trench Crusade models that I've painted and talk a little bit about what I've done for these as well. And first in this little showcase is one of my Janissaries. Janissaries? I do not know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And you can really see the desaturated colors in this and how it looks on a completed picture. I think it looks really close to the art. I have brights here, but it's still desaturated, so it's just adding to that contrast. It's making things really pop without looking bright and colorful. Really happy with how it turned out. Next, I have the Iron Sultan's Alchemist, and as you can see, there's a lot of contrast here for that non-metal metallic, which is a lot easier to paint than you might think. But overall, the colors, except for that flame, are very desaturated. It looks dark despite the bright highlights. Next up, we have the Lion of Jabir, and he's actually going to be the focus of my next YouTube video with a non-metallic metal gold guide, so look forward to that. Like I said, it's much more simple than you might think. Anyways, you'll see more of him later on. You might remember Lord Carver from one of my previous videos where I showed you how to paint green fell flames. I painted his cloak with the same texture method as you saw in this video today. And you can see some of that non-metallics, the gold and then the silver, which I had previously done in my Gorbad Iron Claw video. Now we're going to go back to our fully completed ammo monk. I'm extremely happy with how grim dark this looks. I think the painting methods that I chose, the colors that I chose, really help accurately show it as a grim dark miniature. I really want to stress the importance of creating mood like we talked about, those three important factors of texture, contrast, and color. And I think they worked out great. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Take this time to like, subscribe, do all those things. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry this video came so late. I know it's been about a month since my last video. I went on vacation in Japan. It was a lot of fun. I definitely suggest it. I got sick twice. Definitely don't suggest that. I'm sick right now, so I sound a little funny. But hopefully you stuck through with all this rambling, and I will catch you in the next one.